everybody, Oli here. Welcome to the weekly news recap for the 14th to the 20th of April 2025. So, this week we had Galaxies Showcase, or the Galaxies Show, or whatever that is. I've never heard of it before. I'm pretty sure this is its first appearance. It's a combination of a bunch of like AAA blockbuster yada yada publishers, as well as a bunch of indie publishers all getting together. I think it's sponsors and so on are kind of a lot of different people. As you can see, Konami, Remedy, Crafton, some big names. We got some smaller names down here and so on and so forth. So they're like another E3. Essentially, is kind of what they're going for here. Anyway, so it's about 50 games. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to leave the trailers for a couple of them that we'll point out. So I'll just go through them though. So RuneScape, Dragon Wild is already out. I think it's in early access now. It is a survival and a kind of multiplayer kind of fantasy thing. So you are fighting dragons and goblins and all that kind of stuff, but it also has the survival stuff of cutting down trees and hitting rocks to collect stones and building your own base and stuff like that. So yeah, I think you probably have your own idea of whether or not you are interested in that kind of thing. Covenant, the trailer for it here. Covenant is a new game. It's a new first-person shooter, possibly, from a lot of veterans from things like BioShock, Call of Duty, Destiny, a lot of other well-known first-person shootery types, Dooms and such. You can definitely see a lot of Doom in here. I think I said BioShock there. I actually meant Doom. I was trying to remember which. I knew one of those games was wrong. Anyway, Legion is the name of this new developer. This is their debut game. It certainly looks very pretty. You can certainly see a lot of the Doom inspiration, we'll say, even though that was very Dark Souls 3, that last rolling ball in the catacombs. Anyway, you can see it's kind of, they're going for like a Twitch shooter type thing, whether it's an actual shooter or whether there's a bit more of like first person melee in there as well. Like there's clearly some melee attacks, but you also have a bow. He's attacking with his feet as well as his hands. You got first person, sword combat as well. So whether it actually ends up being a melee or a shooter game or some kind of mix of the two, whether it's going for I was going to say whether it's going for like a bigger RPG kind of thing, but I don't think so. I'd say they're still kind of going for a fairly linear campaign type deal. But it certainly looks very pretty. I sure hope that wasn't a penis. Anyway, coming probably never. Not probably never, but it's going to be a good while off, I would think. Anyway, wishlist now. Pretty much everything was wishlist now on Steam. No release date. Getting back to it, Bionic Bay is actually out this week. We'll talk about it in the new releases section. Do I have Unbeatable? I don't think so. No. Okay, so Unbeatable has a demo out now. Unbeatable is a sort of a rhythm action kind of thing, but is also sort of a lifestyle sim. It's got a very slick trailer. Now, I didn't put it in the trailers for today because most of its slickness is music-based. It being a music rhythm action thing, you probably expect that. Just check out the trailer all by itself. I thought it was really well put together. Whether I'll play the game or not, I don't know. But the trailer was really good. Anyway, Painkiller was announced. A very recent showcase, anyway. I forget which one exactly. The trailer that was shown off at Galaxies was just showing off the guns. There's a lot of guns. It is a first-person shooter. That does make sense. FBC Firebreak is the multiplayer thing from Control. This is from Remedy. We have seen a little bit of it up until now. It's not clear if it is a Left 4 Dead type game or if it is a extraction-y thing. The tags don't have extraction shooter on it, so maybe not, but I did get the vibe that that's what it was going for. Power Simulator 2 was mostly just reminding you that it exists more than anything else, or will exist whenever it comes out. Not a whole lot to show off. Syntopia I thought was interesting. So Syntopia is kind of a tongue-in-cheek, kind of city management, and then also a little bit like of a factory kind of thing going on. So it's kind of a combination like factory management and city management kind of thing. So the basic gist of Syntopia is you're managing hell, and hell is your factory side of things, and you are processing souls as they come through hell, and you are trying to remove as much sin from them as possible. So having them do their penance and so on. And when they reach the end of the factory line, they go back up to the world of the living. And depending on how much sin you were able to strip from them, you will get various currency and resources to spend on other things. But if you're not able to strip enough sin from them, then you're sending like bad people back into the city, and like bad things can happen. And I assume the way the game will work is that you're not actually able to ever strip people entirely of sin. Like, I would imagine that's the way the game will end up working balance wise. But it's a curious combination of two games, and I thought it was interesting. I don't think it mentioned a release date. I think it was just a wishlisty thing. Yeah, just wishlist now. Imperial, still not sure how it's pronounced, is kind of an action RPG thing. It certainly at the beginning looked like it was going to be a an Dark Souls type thing, but the combat is way faster paced, so it does actually seem like it's more of a hack and slash, more of like an old school God of War. Vector Strike is first person shooter Rocket League, I guess. It's meant to be football, but they're all using their hands, so I don't really know how to talk about that. Anyway, it's free to play and is in early access, so you can give it a shot yourself. You basically shoot the ball into the goal. It's kind of the easiest way to talk about it. Nitrogen Omega, we had seen a little bit of before. It's a kind of an like anime mech thing, but it's got a bit more of a turn-based strategy, turn-based combat element to it. So you're preparing your attacks way ahead of time, and then trying to execute it in the next turn, and then maybe the enemy has moved, or the enemy has done something different, and now your turn isn't going to work, or you correctly got them to go to the right place. One sec, guys. Alright, sorry about that, guys. So Poltergeist is... So it's kind of a multiplayer kind of battle royale type thing, but the gist of it is you are all like ghosts that are on the run from this other bigger ghost. It's not clear if the bigger ghost is controlled by another player, or if it's controlled by the like it's an NPC or whatever. But the gist of it is you're all being attacked by this thing, and it is up to you to kind of sabotage your fellow players effectively and sacrifice them to this thing. I don't know, it's an interesting idea. Lost Skies is only out recently. It's a base building survival thing, but it's all takes place in the sky. That's kind of the gist of it. Spine showed off a little bit more of its gameplay. Where's Spine? So Spine is probably going to remind you a little bit of the Arkham combat system, but it's all kind of gun-based, so it's kind of going to go for gun-fu. So think stuff like John Wick films, effectively, is kind of what it's going for. How well that'll work, I guess we'll find out. Previous gameplay I've seen of it has been really impressive. This trailer, I felt, didn't do us a service, to be perfectly honest. But I'm still hyped for the game. I still think it'll be a good time, and it's certainly showing off the developers' animation skills. Anyway, pretty impressive. Anyway, Spine I don't think is out for a good while, and has been in development for a good while as well. So I guess we'll see whenever that actually makes its way out. Neon Abyss 2, action roguelike, side-scrolling kind of thing, bit of like a bullet hell deal. Neon Abyss 2 I think is multiplayer now. I'm not sure if the original was. Star Sand Island is a lifestyle farming sim type thing, but with like anime Genshin Impact aesthetic, I suppose, to it. Expedition 33 is out next week. We'll talk about it then. Deadwire Deadwire is a kind of interesting one. It's top-down shooter, but is also... how to explain it? It's a top-down shooter that's also kind of a strategy game at the same time. So it is a bit Hotline Miami. It's very fast-paced. But the way it works is rather than you using guns and stuff, like you still have guns and whatever, but you can also hack other areas in the map, and the game will slow down a little bit while you're doing that, and you can kind of combo hacks together. So you like connect a phone charger to like a computer or something like that, and if you shoot the computer, it like blows up the phone charger or something like that. Some weird stuff like that. I don't think it actually makes, physical sense, but whatever, it's a video game, let's go with it. Redacted is already out. It's an accolade trader. It seems like it's doing pretty well. Very positive on Steam. It's mostly a reminder that it exists. Rival Hobbers League is Twisted Metal, effectively. Destruction Derby, that kind of thing. It's probably been a while since any of those games have been mentioned, but it's a vehicular arena combat. We haven't seen those kind of games in quite a long time, so this is a real throwback kind of game. Chainstaff. Chainstaff's a bit of a weird one because it kind of reminds me a little bit of like old Java games, to be honest, or old Flash games. Chainstaff, side-scrolling, 2D bladder, 2D platform, shoot 'em up thing. You have a chainstaff. It is both a staff and a chain. You can use it for traversal, like swinging and stuff like that, but then it's also like a staff and a spear. You can spear people with it and that kind of thing. The animation style puts me off because it just reminds me of old Flash games, to be honest, but your mileage may vary. Wraith Ops is a mill sim because Call of Duty Warzone has become a circus, really, at this point, so this is going for more, hey, remember when Call of Duty wasn't weird? Anyway. Castlecraft. It's Minecraft, basically, but castle, siege, tower defense, that kind of thing, thrown in on top of it. Video Ghastlies, I thought... like, the trailer doesn't give much away, and doesn't really give much gameplay away either, to be honest, so it does look like it's going for that hyper-real body cam thing, but going for more of a supernatural horror element to it. So reading up a little bit more on it, the idea of Video Ghastlies is meant to be a little bit of video nasty, which is a nice way of saying a snuff film, basically. The idea is you'll find these various VHS tapes and play them, and then end up going into those worlds. It's a easy enough trope to do like lots of different ideas without having to really string them all together. But I think it can be presented well. Stories Untold is a similar idea, and that was very good. Even if it is a similar kind of like a clip show from a TV show is kind of the vibe I always get from these kind of things. But it could turn out well. Anyway, that, as far as I'm aware, is quite a ways away. Oh no, this year. Okay, you'd expect it to have a little bit more to show if it was out this year, to be honest. Anyway, Windblown. Windblown is a roguelike Diablo kind of thing. This is from the developers who did Dead Cells. It just has an update out soon, I think. Ninja Party, I honestly thought it was a Fortnite thing, like a Fortnite mode, because that was the vibe I was getting from it, but it's kind of a... oh, it's team-based? I didn't even think it was team-based, but it's a PvP brawler thing. It's got a little bit of Fall Guys kind of thing going on, like it seems like it's a game show, but you're all ninjas. It's all parkour and like swords and shurikens and stuff like that. How well it will do, I don't know. Anyway, it's coming soon. The Nightling has been showed off a few times. It's a kind of cartoonish, old school action adventure, platforming action adventure type of thing. So Ratchet and Clank type deal. But no guns. You just have this big shield. But it's that kind of vibe, is what it's going for. Nice Day for Fishing did have a kind of weird live action trailer. The idea with Nice Day for Fishing is you are a fisherman who has been called upon to take the hero's journey, but you only know how to do fishing things. So conveniently, all of the bosses and enemies are all easily defeated with fishing. It's obviously a very dumb kind of game, but still, I think it works out. Demon Spore is an interesting one. It is. So the tags are twin stick shooter, top down shooter, whatever. It's kind of more of a survival kind of game. So the idea with Demon Spore is you're in a lab where a mutagen thing has gotten out and it's killing all of the scientists and what have you, and your job is to effectively escape from that thing. And you can collect like different weapons and different abilities that can halt the mutagen from like coming after you or misdirect it and stuff like that. But I don't think you can't stop it entirely. So if you remember, there's a part in Dead Space where you have to do something similar, where there's this thing that you can't kill and it just keeps chasing after you, but you can cut off its legs and it takes a little while for it to regrow its legs and stuff like that, but you still can't get away. Just that, but it's a whole game. Deliver at all costs looks like a really silly kind of thing, but I think the idea of it is you have to get from point A to point B, and it doesn't matter how you do it. You drive and plow through people's walls and stuff like that. It looks very silly, but I think it'll be a fun time. Black Desert has a new update. I think it's a new area. Neighbors Suburban Warfare is it's a kind of a hero shooter type thing, but you're all neighbors in this one cul-de-sac, and it's very tongue-in-cheek kind of silliness to it. Is a multiplayer thing, so I don't have any particular interest in it. Luz Lagoon has been coming out forever. I'm not sure if it ever will come out, but it's a lifestyle sim. You're living in and around this lagoon. And you can, crafting and constructing varying different things. The difference, or the gimmick, I suppose, or the unique thing for Luz Lagoon is the plane, that you can fly around the island and customize the plane and stuff like that. Linked is another kind of... I was going to say, because the trailer looked like it was going to be an action platformer, kind of like the Nightling, but I think it is more of a roguelike thing instead. You have this bionic arm or whatever that has different abilities. It has like a grappling thing and a harpoon ability and stuff like that. Makes it kind of interesting. But otherwise, it does look like it's just a kind of hack and slash type deal. Tempest Rising, again, I think came out this week. I don't have it in my new releases because I don't particularly care for real-time strategy games. But it's there if you're really jonesing for Command & Conquer, because there hasn't been a new one in a good while at this point. Tempest Rising seems to be what you should be looking for. We got into the Ambitious Indies, which was kind of a quick blast of various different indie games. Electrobot Boxing League is a rhythm action game that's also a resource management. I think you are like managing the robot as it's fighting, but then the fighting controls are based on rhythm. Death Crown, I don't remember what Death Crown is. The tag suggests it's a tower defense game though, so let's go with that. Trench Tales looked like it was going to be interesting until looked like a multiplayer type thing, although the tag suggests it's not multiplayer. In which case, maybe it will be good. Trench Tales looks like over-the-shoulder World War I, but World War I is also hell at the same time. And to be honest, I dismissed it because I thought it was a multiplayer game, but if it's not a multiplayer game, it might actually be interesting. Monster Con, I think, is a Monster Prom game. It says it there, Monster Prom 4, so that's what it is. It's another Monster Prom game. Monster Proms are like kind of funny visual novels about like monster people just going through their life, and they're going to Monster Con this time. Window Kill is kind of leads to sort of meta games where your PC's windows are fighting you and trying to kill you and what have you, and you need to fight back against them. Piece Together. See, these all came really fast, so I'm trying to remember what they were. This kind of reminds me of a game we played on the channel called Ordonia. So it's like a scrapbook type game where you go through the story of somebody's life and you collect pieces and put them into their scrapbook. Palace on the Hill seemed like a kind of lifestyle sim thing that also has this overarching plot of this mysterious ruin on the hill. It's already out though, it looks things. didn't remember much else about it, to be honest. Demon School, I've been kind of trying to keep my eye on Demon School. It has a kind of Persona vibe to it, and then a kind of turn-based tactics, turn-based strategy element to it. The game takes place on a lane system. It's like 5 lanes. You position your people based on Final Fantasy Tactics kind of thing, so it is kind of a grid at the same time, but enemies will gradually make their way towards you, and you need to make your way to the opposite end of the track to close demon portal and stuff like that, and enemies will keep coming until you close the demon portal. And your characters have different abilities, not unlike Final Fantasy Tactics. It's like I can attack 3 squares in front of me, or I attack the 4 squares in front, or I can attack behind me and stuff like that. Story-wise, I'm not entirely sure. I think it's kind of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer thing, but not vampires, it's demons. But I think that's kind of the vibe they're going for. So it's the gang together, but one of them is the chosen person who's supposed to kill all these things. Anyway, Four Last Things is already out. It's in my library. I haven't played it yet, but it's a very silly, historical, funny point-and-click thing. There's 2 other games in the series, but they're all very funny. Occlude is a weird solitaire game. I think it's kind of do the Balatro thing, but solitaire. I think. Oh no, it's a horror game. Maybe it isn't. Anyway, it is trying to do the meta thing of we're going to play a game, but there's also another game going on at the same time. Asuka the Ascent is a driving game. It's got a strong anime vibe to it. I did like the look of it, but I'm not super into racing games. And The Legend of Babu we have seen a few times. Babu is the giant hairy dog. And also there's a kid that you're actually playing in the game, but that's not important. Babu's the name of the dog, so clearly it's about the dog, right? It's not about the kid. It's an interesting choice of dog, because it's like an Akita, I think. So like a big Shiba Inu. Or a big chow, maybe, but it has the tail that curls back on itself, so you're just going to be looking at its butthole for the whole game. So it's an interesting choice to go with. Anyway, Vending Dokkan Cozy Kiosk is a vending sim thing. You are running a vending machine business. You collect various vending machines and put them out and get money and use that money to make more vending machines, that kind of thing. I'm not sure if it is a idler type thing. Oh, well, Tag says it's an idler, but is it a desktop toy that some of those games are now, where they just run on your desktop in the background? You don't really have to pay attention to it. I don't know. Pool Panic. I don't remember Pool Panic. I guess it's a kind of. A fucking adventure game, but there's some weird snooker or pool mechanics to it. I don't know. It's got very positive though, so maybe it's interesting. Project Grove looked like another crafting thing. There are too many at this point for me to really pay attention to it. Golf Gambit is a silly golf game, effectively. It's golf, but there's some stupid stuff like laser traps and hurricanes and dumb stuff happening. Hello Again is Groundhog Day, the game. So it's like a puzzle Zelda-like thing, but the level the day resets itself. Either when you die or at a predetermined time, I guess. Vampire Therapist is already out. It's a sort of coffee talk, but you're a therapist instead. So it's a visual novel type thing. Three Blades Ranch is a base management farming sim thing, but it's a Western. Acolyte. I don't remember Acolyte. It seems like it's a detective game of some kind. Again, these all came in a fast blast of indies, so I'm not going to remember a lot of them. Here Tale of Hauntings, I have actually been following for a bit. So I followed the developer on social media, and they've been showing off a lot of this character and a lot of the environments and the assets and stuff like that, but this is the first kind of trailer we've had from it. So you're playing Adelaide Clancy. So basically Here Tale of Hauntings is kind of a Western survival horror. Basically. You're going to the Winchester Mystery House There's some history about that I'm not aware of. I'm not really up on American history exactly, but there's people in the house who are supposed to be dead, and you've gotten an invitation to their wedding, which is a bit suspect. So obviously the idea is over the shoulder, the newer Resident Evil games kind of vibe to it, but it's a Western. No, that's the deal. Not a whole lot of gameplay in the trailer. It's mostly a tone setter. Anyway, we had Lily's World, which is also a sort of meta game that takes place on your desktop sort of thing. I think the idea with this one is you get Lily's laptop and are like pretending to be her, and then somebody who you're talking to knows you're not Lily or whatever, and then there's some sort of psychological horror thing going on afterwards. I don't know. Looks like Lemmings, but I don't think it is. LAPD 2195 is kind of a reboot to the old LAPD Future games. Not much shown off in the trailer. The assumption is there'll be some kind of mech combat, there'll be some sort of single player element to it, but we haven't really seen much actual gameplay. Chromagun 2 Die Hard is kind of Portal, effectively. So it's kind of like a first-person puzzle game where your gun has a weird gimmick, and the weird gimmick with this is color coding, color matching things. But if you've played things like Portal, things like the Entropy Center, things like Superliminal, those kind of games, it's in that wheelhouse, effectively. Beyond Astra is... it's kind of Civ, I guess. It's a bit Civilization, but in space. I think it's kind of the deal with it. And then the last one, Subverge. Subverge is an interesting one. It's sort of Among Us, sort of what's the game where somebody pretends to be a werewolf? That's the one. I couldn't remember the name of the fucking monster. Anyway, the idea is you're trying to keep this conversation going with the people who are outside your submersible, and it's to try to make sure that they don't pull out the stops on your submersible and end up killing you. So it's trying to, keep everybody on board and make sure everyone is okay with you being there, kind of thing. So if you've ever been like dropped into a Among Us chat and you're having to plead your case for why you shouldn't be jettisoned, it's that kind of boiled down into one game or one game mechanic. Anyway, that was the Galaxies Showcase. It was their first one. It's got backing from some pretty big publishers, not like the biggest exactly, but there's some pretty big publishers there. Jane Douglas was the host, so it's probably got some IGN backing as well. So, there's some stuff there. Anyway, that wasn't the only updates happening this week. I have done something weird. Let me go back in. Did that break OBS? No, it didn't. Okay, good. Star Wars Zero Company. Hang on, something else is playing. You're playing. Okay, the next trailer is playing. Anyway, Star Wars Zero Company was was announced at Star Wars Celebration, which is happening over the weekend. Star Wars Celebration being like just a big thing where they announce a bunch of Star Wars shit, basically. So Star Wars Zero Company had been working on by a bunch of ex-Firaxis people with EA and Respawn. So this is effectively, all of those names together should probably tell you that it's a Star Wars XCOM thing. So you're going to be playing Zero Company. It's a ragtag group of rogues and so on. It's got all of the things you'd expect from a Star Wars. It's got a Jedi guy. It's got a droid guy. It's got a trooper. It's got a Mandalorian and a trooper for some reason, even though they would hate each other. And it's got this guy who I'm not sure who he's supposed to be. Anyway, and you're fighting against, I think it's set in the Clone Wars, so you're going to be fighting the droid army and what have you, and maybe the clones. I don't know. It's not clear if Zero Company is a Republic thing or not. Not a huge amount of gameplay at the beginning. We'll jump into just like a small bit at the end. Maybe not. Could have sworn that, yeah, there's like a very tiny bit of gameplay all at the end. Anyway, it's XCOM. I think you know what you're getting into. Whether it's actually grid based, it doesn't seem to be. But it is that kind of isometric battlefield type thing, which is very much an XCOM like, coming next year at some stage. After that, game that wanted to introduce itself before I was ready for it, Agni Village of Calamity was shown off at an Xbox Asia showcase. That I'm trying to find the full showcase somewhere, the full live stream, but I wasn't able to, at least before today's stream. I'm still looking. Maybe I'll find more of it. Anyway, this one looked kind of interesting. It's a survival horror game that's set in Indonesia. And the idea is you're playing Agni, who's going looking for her sister, who's meant to have reported back from this village, and she hasn't. Some shenanigans are going on. I'm going to skip past the trailer, because then there's some like gameplay elements later. Anyway, so it's survival horror. It's got a little bit more Silent Hill to it than it does Resident Evil. Agni is meant to be a police officer, I think. It's not clear. She's part of some police-like force that I don't think actually exists. I think it's a fictional thing for the game. But that was the vibe I got anyway. The weapons, though, she doesn't... You do see guns like very late in this trailer, but for the most part, it does seem to be melee weapons, which would make it a lot closer to Silent Hill than Resident Evil. You got that creature that was looming out of it there is a hunter type thing, or a tyrant type creature. Effectively, it's a thing that's just going to stalk you for the whole game. So a lot of it is trying to limit how much noise you make, how many times you backtrack on yourself and stuff like that, and that will mitigate how often you see that guy. But you're probably going to see him a lot. Is kind of what the developer was going with. Skip ahead a bit. A lot of it is tone setting. There's a mannequins thing, but the mannequins come to life, so there is some kind of supernatural thing here. There's a transition here that I wanted to point out, because that's very Silent Hill. So you've got these mannequins, but then you've got this other world, or a filter over the world, or Agni is seeing something different. I don't know. But yeah, that's also a very Silent Hill thing. So it's clearly got that inspiration. Don't think there's a release date for it yet. I'm just gonna skip to the end. Got this thing. You can't hear it obviously because I've muted it, but it's mimicking your sister's voice, which is pretty creepy. Anyway, this guy's stalking you about the place, as I was saying. Does it have a release date? That's the end of the video, so no, it doesn't. Okay, it's a while off, as far as I remember. Chronos: The New Dawn. This is from Bloober Team. This follow-up for Silent Hill 2 remake. Has been shown off a few times. This trailer's kind of giving a little bit more of its gameplay. It does seem like they're taking the gun combat from Silent Hill 2 as a sort of starting off point, and then trying to build from that. So it is interesting to see Bloober kind of move from what would have been pretty almost non-interactive games, like things like Layers of Fear. A lot of that is just walk to a place and press a button, and that's kind of it. To stuff like Silent Hill 2 that obviously had a lot more interactive elements to it and open combat and stuff like that. And now Chronos seems like it will be a lot more combat elements to it. There seems to be a gimmick for the enemies as well, that if you are fighting 2 or more enemies at once and you kill one of them, the other enemy can absorb that body and become a much stronger version, or something like that. I'd be interesting to see how that works. Are there like bespoke combinations? Like, is every... Like, if you had something like Resident Evil, you would have like specific enemy types. You know, you have zombies, you have lickers, hunters, that kind of thing. And then is there a new creature that comes from the combination of those two, or is the combination always the same? It's just like a super version of whatever the underlying creature is. Like if a licker merged with a zombie, or a licker merged with a hunter, would you just get a super licker, you know, or would you get some kind of weird hunter licker hybrid thing. You know, I get is kind of the way I'm going with it. Anyway, more of that. It's going to be out some stage this year, but we don't have a specific release date. Arc Raiders. Arc Raiders is the other extraction shooter that's been in development for a good while. So Marathon was obviously one of them. Arc Raiders is also kind of a throwback. It's got the sort of 80s visual aesthetic to it. I was kind of interested in Arc Raiders when it was strictly PvE. You know, it was strictly an extraction shooter, but there weren't other players, you know, fucking with your game, you know, having you have a bad time. Basically, is why I don't like to play those games. But then they changed it, and now it is PvP, and it's like, well, I don't give a shit about it anymore. Anyway, it has a new tech test, some stage. I think it's the week after next, April 30th of April to the 4th of May. Has a new tech test if you're interested in checking it out. Got a couple of release dates. So Shotgun Cop Man is the next thing from my friend Pedro, which was a very elaborate shooter game. As you can see, Shotgun Cop Man is also a very elaborate shooter game. It's got maybe a little bit in common with Super Meat Boy, I guess, a little bit. It's like a precision platformer, but it's also a shooter. The demo is a lot of fun, if kind of hard, and a lot of it is trial and error, and you know, you do one run and you do it really well. That's basically the way it goes. So yeah, that'll be out 1st of May. And then the other game is the Horror at Highbrook. It's very different kind of game. Shotgun Cop Man is obviously very fast paced, and the Horror at Highbrook is much slower paced. It's kind of like, I guess it's a bit Clue, I guess, in some ways, Cluedo, the board game. So it is a card-based board game. It's like a little bit of team management stuff, and it is trying to figure out the mystery and the horror at this mansion that you've been put into. You've got this team of different people who all have their own different abilities. They work well in different rooms, but there's obviously some kind of, let's call it, psychological effect going on. So sometimes they're not able to use those rooms and they have to work in places where they're not good at, and this kind of thing. There's a lot of, if you ever played the games like Elder Sign or Arkham Horror and stuff like that, those kind of board games, there's a lot of that to it. Anyway, Horror Highbrook is also 1st of May. And then the kind of bigger news, but I put it at the end because we don't actually have an official word from Bethesda, even though at this point it is more or less confirmed. But technically it's not confirmed, so technically it's still a rumor. But the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remaster is almost certainly a thing, and is almost certainly out this month at some stage. So there's a big leak of screenshots and details that came off Virtuos, who are the developer behind the remake. They had put up a bunch of stuff on their website that was accessible, wasn't viewable by the public, but if you could find it on their server, and people did find it. This remake has been expected for a few years because there was another leak back in 2020, which kind of laid out Bethesda's game roadmap for the next few years. So we knew an Oblivion remaster was on the way, and also there's a Fallout 3 remaster, maybe also potentially on the way. And the plan is, allegedly, from the leakers, is that Bethesda plan to shadow drop the game next week, which would be this week if you're watching this on YouTube. But I'd say end of April, possibly we'll see it. It's kind of nuts for them to just shadow drop that, though. You'd think they'd put a bit more effort into it, which is, you know, occasionally concerning, because when developers shadow drop their games, big developers shadow drop their games, it's usually because they don't have as much faith in it. It's not always the case, but it's a little bit worrying. You would have expected Microsoft and Bethesda to have done some element of marketing on it. I don't know. Maybe they feel that pitching it to a modern audience, so people who haven't played the original Oblivion, is maybe difficult. I don't know. But Eurogamer has corroborated these files were in fact on the thing. Yeah, so people aren't making up the images. They do exist. They are real. There's a couple of them. Some of them are just background images for the website, but they've got like a side-by-side thing here. Less green, anyway. There's also less bloom, which is certainly preferred. If you played the game at the time, bloom was a real problem. You really, really needed to tone it down. Some key art. I'm sure this will probably be the box if there is a physical version. These are like backgrounds that would just be, they probably have like text and stuff on top of this. Then a couple of in-game things. The Oblivion gates, I feel like the originals look better. I don't know. Because they don't really get the shape, right? It's meant to have, where's the key art? The Oblivion gates are meant to have this shape to them. And I felt on the old games, it was really obvious that they had that shape. Whereas the new one, now this could just be the angle the picture's taken at, but I don't really see it. Like it's kind of there, but I don't really get it. Anyway, it does look like you can see into the Oblivion Gate though, which you couldn't in the original game. It was just a loading screen. I imagine it's still a loading screen, but if it's not, that would be very impressive. A couple of shots of Tamriel there. Or not Tamriel, Cyrodiil. Wait. Cyrodiil's the city, right? Tamriel's the area? I don't know, whichever of those it is. It is mentioned on some of the, I think on the leak at the time it was mentioned that there have been some changes made to the gameplay to make it modernized. So like blocking and dodging and stuff like that I think have been added, which were not part of, like blocking was, but dodging was not a thing. Parrying I don't think was a thing in Oblivion. And it seems like they've added that to the game. See how that works out for them. Anyway, allegedly out next week, maybe the end of the month. I don't know. I feel like they've been saying that for a while now, so I guess we'll see. The free game over on the Epic Game Store is Botanicula. I have no idea what that is. 5 friends, little tree creatures, set out on a journey to save the last seed from their home tree, which is infested by evil parasites. Okay. So it's like a 5-player platformer type thing. Yeah, I think it's like a platform, but you're playing 5 characters at once. I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me. Anyway, going to move on. Xbox second wave for April is looking pretty good, actually. Obviously, Expedition 33 we talked about a few times. It's the JRPG that's not a J. It's an F. It's France. It's France RPG. But it's got a lot of old school JRPG elements to it and looks amazing. And it's out next week. We'll talk about it then. Modern Warfare 2 it wasn't already on Game Pass apparently, but it is now. Grand Theft Auto 5 I think had been taken off Game Pass and is now it's back. Dredge is kind of indie darling. That's kind of part fishing game, part psychological horror. Crime Scene Cleaner, I've played on PC. I really liked it. It's a cleaning game. You clean up a crime scene. That's it. If you kind of liked the house flipper kind of stuff of fixing up a fucked up house and making it nice again, Crime Scene Cleaner is kind of the same deal. It's got a little bit more of a story element to it. You're a cleaner for the mob, but like emphasis on the cleaner part and not on the murdering people part. You don't do any killing. There's no combat. You're just cleaning the place up. Viscera cleanup detail, I think, is the other game that's kind of like that. I liked it. I thought it was fun. Towerborn, I think it's kind of a Castle Crashers, but it's a game preview, so it's still in early access. Tempopo, I'm not familiar with. Far Cry 4, it's a Far Cry game. It's a first-person shooter that has too many elements to it. And Neon White is a really good speed game. It's like an arcade platform shooter thing, I guess. It's kind of hard to describe it. It's a speed running game, really. What is... And then SpongeBob SquarePants is a platformer type thing. Tempopo, they don't have any information about it either. Oh no, wait, yes they do. Hannah's garden of musical flowers are scattered across the sky. She asks the Tempopo for help returning them. Chaotic and uncoordinated by nature, Tempopo need Hannah's conducting skills to keep on beat. It feels like Patapon. It seems like it's either Patapon or Lemmings. But to music. Well, Patapon was obviously to music. Lemmings was not. Lemmings plus rhythm action, I guess, is what they're going for. Anyway, those are some of the games that you can play soon. What if you wanted to play something this week? Well, you have Bionic Bay. That's what I'm talking about in the Galaxies. Bionic Bay is a really trippy kind of puzzle game. You have time control elements, you've got teleportation elements, you've got gravity manipulation abilities and stuff like that. It does have, by the looks of things, a little bit of limbo to it, and like it's almost a trial by error puzzle thing, because I'm sure you're gonna fuck it up the first time and then realize, oh, I need to shift gravity at this spot, or I need to teleport at this spot, or I need to slow time at this spot and stuff like that. You know, you're going to accidentally blow yourself up. Like there, where he just gave himself a concussion and that kind of thing. Those abilities look pretty trippy, particularly the teleportation one for puzzle solving. Seems like it'll be pretty nuts. I feel like the time slowdown one is obvious, when you would use it, and the gravity shifting thing, again, seems obvious enough when you would do a teleportation. I think is maybe non-obvious when you would use it to get out of situations, what have you. Anyway, it seems pretty interesting. The art style is quite nice, but I don't think I like the kind of pixelated nature to it. Like, I like pixel art graphics, but there's something about the way the character looks I don't like, and I felt the same way about Axiom Verge. And I don't know what it is. Is it that he's a scientist? Possibly, I don't know. Anyway, that's Bionic Bay. And we have Mandragora, Whispers of the Witch Tree is a side-scrolling Dark Souls. It's probably the easiest way to explain it. Pretty hard, pretty punishing, but it does have a pretty in-depth combat and progression system, leveling up system. I don't think it's like a class-based thing. I think you just sort of take your character in different directions. If you want to focus on magic, or focus on melee, or focus on defense, or ranged, or what have you. But yeah, it is pretty tough. Let's just keep that in mind. There's your loot, but it's not... I don't think it's like the kind of levels of like Diablo loot, but you know, you're gonna pick up some good shit. Leveling system to give you different abilities. You can jump. You can't jump in Dark Souls, so it's got that going for it. Anyway, it's Mandragora, Whispers of the Witch Tree. Lush foil photography sim. I don't know. This is probably going to be a niche one for people. I kind of just like it because it looks really pretty. It's a couple of different locations. Many of them, if not all of them, are real locations in the real world. And you just take photographs. That's it. I don't think there's much more to the game. I think there's like try to get a photograph of this specific thing, but like that kind of task list element to it. But I think for the most part, you're just wandering around the environment and taking nice pictures. How big the environments are, I don't know. Is it like a really small square in the area, or can you like really go anywhere? Anyway, that's Lush Foil Photography Sim. And then a couple of like ports and remasters and stuff. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, obviously is already out on Xbox and PC, is now making its way over to PlayStation as part of Microsoft's attempts to get more money, essentially. They figure since people who own consoles, the vast majority of them own PlayStations rather than Xboxes, so if they want to make money off their first party stuff, they're gonna have to start putting it on PlayStation. Whether you'll see Sony do it the other way around, I don't think so, because they don't have that problem. But who knows? The PS6 maybe isn't as popular. Anyway, it's on PlayStation now, if you want to check that out. Lunar Remastered is, or the Lunar Remastered Collection rather, is Lunar 1 and 2 remastered. These were very old JRPGs, but they were pretty good from what I've heard. I haven't played them myself, so I don't know. But old school JRPGs, they always seemed like they were at minimum decent. Like, I don't think there are any. Someone can probably correct me. I don't think there are any bad, like old SNES JRPGs or old PS1 JRPGs. They all felt like they were at minimum like okay, if not good, great, amazing. Anyway, that's Lunar 1 and 2. If you want to check those out, a bit of video game history. And then the last one, Stygian Outer Gods, is out on early access. And I believe it was a Kickstarter title once upon a time. I'm not sure if they're still taking backers. I'm sure they'll still take your money. Anyway, Stygian Outer Gods, first-person survival horror. It's got a bit of Resident Evil 8 to it, but it is focusing mostly on Lovecraft, eldritch horror stuff. You know, fishing villages that have gotten fucked up kind of thing. That's what they're going for here, Stygian Outer Gods. I've seen a little bit of gameplay of it. And yeah, it does seem like Resident Evil Village. Maybe not as action-focused as Resident Evil is, but it's clear that that's an inspiration to it. And maybe a little bit of Call of Cthulhu or Innsmouth. You know, a little bit of those kind of games. And they've got an enigmatic trader guy who's definitely also not a Resident Evil inspiration. Anyway, that's currently on PC, early access. I don't know when 1.0 is allegedly going to be out. Unfortunately, though, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games, the video game industry. So, video game industry was actually kind of quiet this week. So not a whole lot of bullshit going on, which means there'll probably be an extra helping of bullshit next week. We'll see. Anyway, Sony has raised the price on the PlayStation 5 in some markets, again, but not in the US, again. Kind of a weird one, Sony. Why do you keep jacking up the price everywhere else except the US, when they're the ones who are implementing tariffs and shit? Anyway, Sony is hiking the price of the PlayStation 5 in Europe, Australia, New Zealand. I don't know what EMEA is. Emirates? No. Maybe? Anyway, and the United Kingdom. Alleging challenging economic environments, Sony Interactive Entertainment has made the tough decision, I'm sure it was very tough, to ask for more money, to raise the recommended retail price of the PlayStation 5 console in select markets in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Okay, that's what EMEA is. But Europe is already there. Why did they say Europe and? Anyway, Australia and New Zealand. I think somewhere down here it is alleged because of inflation. Does inflation not happen in the United States? Does inflation not happen in Japan? Are they somehow uniquely immune to it? Inflation only happens in Europe, apparently. So it's gone up an extra €50, an extra £40 in the UK, which means it's now about €500. So it's now more than the Switch 2. It was going to be about the same as the Switch 2. Now it's more than the Switch 2. And that's just the digital edition. If you want the disc drive, it's going to be more on top of that. So that's nice. Australia, though, is getting kind of... well, I don't know the exchange rate, but it feels like 750 Australian dollar dues. That seems like a lot. And again, that's just the digital one. With the disc drive is 830 Australian dollar dues. That's so much money. 950 New Zealand bucks. Fucking hell. Again, I don't know the exchange rate. That might be like a fiver, but I doubt it. Anyway, the PS5 Pro pricing remains the same. Sony previously announced sweeping pricing hikes back in August 2022, citing challenging economic conditions, which they've done again. And back in 2022, they once again raised the prices on Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Middle East, United Kingdom, and not the US again. Despite the US not being immune to inflation, the US dollar is certainly being hit by inflation, and also the fucking tariff shit. But they're not putting up the price there, and we know why, really, is because the US is its biggest market. It's where it will sell the most consoles. So they fear that putting up the price there would dissuade people from buying it. So they put up the price elsewhere to make up for the extra that they'll probably have to pay if they had really, dealt with the tariffs and price adjusted it in that way. So they're taking a bit of a gamble here that they can offset the additional costs. But the excuse of challenging economic environment is incorrect, because this challenging economic environment affects everybody, particularly if they're going to say inflation. So that's bullshit, as we assumed. But my assumption is they're raising the price in markets where they don't sell as many, and they figure they'll still sell them there, make a little bit of extra money, and then they won't have to put up the price in other markets. Or they haven't decided what they're going to do with the tariffs situation, and they're still working that out. Possibly. You might still end up seeing a price hike in the US. Moving on. A vicious cycle. Translator union calls out keywords for lowballing contract workers. So before we get into this, disclosure, I did used to work for Keywords. I was a contractor for Localized QA. Did it when I was in college. Haven't worked with them since. Haven't had any contact with them since. But we'll talk about that there. I was in college like 20 years ago. It's been a while. Anyway, maybe not 20 years ago. It was a good while ago. Oh, fuck it. No, yeah, 20 years ago. Shit, I'm fucking old. All right, anyway, translator unions, Audiovisual Translators Europe and Tremati, which is an Italian one, have called out the multinational game service provider Keywords for ignoring their requests for collective bargaining. So Keywords, when I worked for them, were a localization QA company. So they would do translations for games, and then they would localize those translations as well. So they'd have people play the games in the native language and make sure everything looked correct, spelled correct, fit in the box and stuff like that. Any kind of graphical issues you'll get, particularly translating things into German. Small word suddenly becomes giant word, doesn't fit in the box anymore, you need to adjust it and so on. So that was the kind of work we did. But since then, Keywords have acquired a lot of other service companies, and they have branched out, and they're doing a lot of other things now for video game industry. But for the most part, they're still doing translations and localization. Anyway, both unions have accused Keywords of prioritizing the race for profit over the needs of translation workers, and they have been their attempts to discuss this issue with Keywords has been met with a wall of silence. AVTE, Audiovisual Translators Europe, kind of represents various unions across Europe, and then Tremati is specifically in Italy, because I think Keywords has a bigger base in Keywords or in Italy. Anyway, both unions claim that Keywords has gained a competitive edge in the translation industry by applying an aggressive profit-first logic to the detriment of both internal employees and external contractors. They allege Keywords has essentially monopolized the translation industry through mergers and acquisitions. So I was talking about Keywords have gone through a big mergers and acquisition spree, where you could just buying companies, buying competitors, and limiting the amount of places that translators can work at, which is kind of the big issue here. Because you could have gone to a competing translation company who would pay you better and treat you better and so on, but then Keywords turns around and just buys the company. It was a similar issue I pointed out when developers would have jumped ship from Microsoft to end up working at Activision. Now, whether that worked out to be a good deal or not, the problem was if you wanted to get away from Microsoft and then Microsoft acquired Activision, you're like, shit, now I gotta move again. Anyway, Keywords' most harmful practice is the merging and acquisition policy, in which they systematically absorb smaller and more human companies, increasingly limiting the alternatives for those who would like to earn a living through translation. This is why government bodies are meant to intervene when mergers and acquisitions are going ahead, particularly when there are mergers between competing companies, is to ensure that there doesn't result in this kind of monopoly thing. But of course, governments could just have money thrown at them and they will ignore all of that stuff. Anyway, the culmination of this process was seen last summer in preparation for Keywords' acquisition by the equity fund EQT. 31 employees were laid off for no other reason than to increase the company's already high profit margin. This is alleged. Nobody had Keywords upper management said that's why they laid them off. So it's alleged that that's why they do it. Keywords freelance collaborators, although not directly affected by the layoffs, are experiencing a continuous deterioration of their working conditions and compensation. That would have been my job, freelance collaborator. And I was fine with the money because I was still living at home and had a lot of bills paid for me, really, at the time. So anything I was being paid by Keywords was effectively fun money, really. So the pay wasn't all that important because I just got to play video games and I thought that was great. And you find out that actually game testing is a real fucking slog and is not as fun as it might seem. Anyway, unions claim Keywords intentionally withholds work from inherited contractors on decent rates to avoid paying those fees. So inherited contractors are people who would have been under contract with the company they acquired. So they've acquired the company and then they acquired the contracts with them and then just didn't give them any work afterwards because they were paid well, basically. Keywords also allegedly puts out promises of experience-based raises that never materialize. The idea is the more things you work on, the better you'll get paid, but it doesn't happen. Or the adjusted rate is so negligible that it's like irrelevant. Anyway, many freelancers with years of experience in the company are still working at entry-level rates with a monthly income equivalent to that of an unskilled beginner, so the experience effectively doesn't mean anything. And again, as we've pointed out, since they have bought effectively the vast majority of their competition, or all of their competition in some countries, if you want to work as a translator, there's only really one place you can go, and you're not being paid well enough. Anyway, so the next thing is about Keywords pushing forward this idea that you could take a wholesaler approach to your work. So rather than just work on one project and subsist off the pay you're getting for that, you could take on multiple projects. Thanks, work more. What does that sound like? Does it sound like Uber? Does it sound like DoorDash? That's kind of where they're going with it. Anyway, by accepting a lower rate, one can work on more projects, though no guarantee is provided in this regard, thus earning an equal or higher income. So you can earn as much as you want as long as you work the shit out of yourself. It's like, that's not how it's supposed to work. Anyway, what this ends up happening is they overload their slate with poorly paid tasks, leaving them with no time or energy to seek out better opportunities. So you're poorly paid enough, which means you're going to have to take on more work to make enough money to pay your rent and do any of those things. And because you're taking on extra tasks, it's extra hours where you aren't spending looking for a better job. Anyway, in an attempt to remedy this situation, both unions did reach out to Keywords' resource management at the end of last year, twice. Didn't hear anything back. Reached out again in February, still have not heard anything back. So that's good shit. Anyway, the company has yet to respond as of the 14th of April 2025, which was last week. So it does seem like they're just, hey, we own the translation business, so get fucked. This is why you're meant to block mergers and acquisitions. Anyway, moving on. BioWare's Mass Effect and Dragon Age teams didn't get along, former dev claims. I know, everybody tried to look shocked. Anyway, so this is coming from David Gator, who is Dragon Age's creator, effectively, and was a writer for BioWare for a long time as well. Left the company in 2016 after having worked there for fucking ages, like almost his entire career at that point. But said the staff working on the two biggest franchises just didn't get along. For a long time, it was basically two teams under one roof, the Dragon Age team and the Mass Effect team. Run differently, very different cultures, may as well have been two separate studios, and they didn't get along. The company was aware of the friction, and attempts to fix it have been ongoing for years, mainly by shuffling staff between the teams more often. Yet this didn't really solve things, and I had no idea until I got to the Anthem team. Jesus, fucking Anthem. The team didn't want me there at all. Now, never mind how fucking Anthem turned out in the first place, but when Anthem was being developed, you did kind of get the feeling, or at least the reading of like the behind the scenes stuff definitely gave me the feeling that it was a similar thing between Anthem and Mass Effect. Like the people who were working on Mass Effect Andromeda and the people who were working on Anthem had a bit of animosity with each other. Mainly because the Anthem team was poaching the best developers from the Mass Effect Andromeda team, and we saw how Andromeda turned out. And then we saw how Anthem turned out. Anyway, Gator says he had been specifically asked by BioWare management to write for Anthem. After the project had initially been conceived as some kind of hard sci-fi setting, why you would ask the guy who writes for Dragon Age to do that, I don't know, but whatever. Anyway, he joins the Anthem team. His new colleagues were seemingly unaware of why he was writing something they thought was too Dragon Age. Anyway, so the idea was they wanted to make it a hard sci-fi setting thing, kind of like Aliens. Okay, that's not really how it turned out, but that was the initial idea for Anthem. I kept getting feedback about how it was too Dragon Age, and how everything I wrote or planned was too Dragon Age, the implication being that anything like Dragon Age was bad. And yet, this was a team where I was required to accept and act on all feedback, so I ended up iterating constantly, and we wonder why Anthem turned out the way it did. Anyway, I won't go into detail about the problems except to say it became clear this was a team that didn't want to make an RPG, were very anti-RPG in fact, yet they wanted me to wave my magic writing wand and create a BioWare quality story without giving me any of the tools I'd need to actually do that. It was quite clear that Anthem wanted to be a third-person shooter and not an RPG. Something BioWare was not known for. Again, this kind of shoehorning a studio whose strengths are in one genre and then trying to push them into another genre and being surprised when things don't work out. Ultimately, Gator departed BioWare after 17 years following a failed attempt to bargain for a creative director's position after Anthem. I had no idea where I was going to go or what I was going to do, but I wanted out. So this is really just another piece of information about BioWare after Mass Effect 2, after the EA acquisition, effectively, and how EA bought the name and then really just wanted to turn it into a completely different studio. Especially after Mass Effect 2 did so well. They just wanted to make action-y things at that point. You can see how, like, schizophrenic Dragon Age is as a series. Like, the first one is like an old school CRPG ish, and then the second one is we're stretching this a little bit. We're trying to make an action game, but not an action game. Also trying to keep it like an RPG system. It doesn't really work. And then Dragon Age Inquisition tried to be an MMO, but wasn't an MMO. Dragon Age 2 tried to be a real-time action game, which wasn't a real-time action game, and so on. I haven't played the Veilguard, but I assume it's a similar situation. Trying to be something it shouldn't have been. Anyway, last thing, which is actually a good thing for a change from Ubisoft, and from industry bullshit in general, Ubisoft releases colorblind simulation tool for all in positive move for accessibility efforts. So, we had heard about Ubisoft's Chroma, this tool that it uses to do colorblind testing and stuff like that, and heard that it is pretty good. It is open source on GitHub, so if you want to check it out, GitHub is a repository for source code for a lot of different things. You can find a lot of things out there. Most of it probably not that useful to you, but Chroma's there if you want to ever run it yourself and you know a little bit about terminal-based or command line-based development. You might be able to figure it out. I might try it myself, actually, and see how that works out. Anyway, and the way it works is they apply filters to the game, or to anything, video, whatever. It just applies it to a window on your PC, and it just kind of overlays a filter based on what kind of visual impairment you're going for. So this is deuterochromia, I think, which is green-blue color blindness, where greens and blues sort of are the same color, I think. So you can see here, like, the sky. The image behind is the game running as normal, and the image in front, or the window in front, is chroma on top of it. So you can see, like, the skybox is different. Like, the blue of the sky turns purple. The river on the mini-map is purple rather than blue and stuff like that. Really interestingly, in the bottom left, I think that meter is meant to be green, and it's just grey. There's another image somewhere, I don't know where I saw it, but there's another image somewhere else where they're using like a monochrome filter where you can only see in grays. And the odometer there looks basically the exact same. Like the gray that you're seeing here in the bottom left looks almost identical to if you had like monochrome vision. So clearly using that particular shade of green isn't going to work out, or maybe you need to use like a pattern or like symbols or something. But it gives you an idea of what may or may not be a problem. Like you might look at this and say, I mean, they still know what it is, so it's probably not that big an issue. Or at least they'll see it turn red, because they don't have that visual impairment. Anyway, that's available. The source code is on GitHub if you want to check it out yourselves. And then the last thing, because we did have the rumors about the Oblivion remake, and we did know that in the community there is a mod currently being made, Sky Oblivion, which is an attempt to port Oblivion into Skyrim. And the concern would be that now that the Oblivion remake remaster is effectively a real thing and is out pretty soon, Bethesda would be, cease and desist with your mod. But as it turns out, it's not. Bethesda haven't said anything, or I think actually it's like they gave a blessing for it. That might be from a different. That may be from a different website. I don't think I have that quote. Anyway, Sky Oblivion is a full remake of Oblivion in Skyrim's engine. Is also due to release at some stage this year. Probably not within the next 2 weeks, but who knows. The real remake is the friends we made along the way, which is according to K Rebel, the lead developer. This changes nothing for me. This was always a passion project and still is until the end. For the community, it's a win-win. You get twice as much Oblivion this year. All love and no hate towards the people who made the official remaster. At the end of the day, it only exists because Bethesda allowed it to, so I guess if the official remake is real, it's good that we are still allowed to exist at all. We'll come back to that one later when the game is officially out, but for now, at least, it seems that you might get double Oblivion this year, potentially. Anyway, we'll leave Bionic Bay to play in the background. Anyway, that is your news for the 14th to the 20th of April, 2025. The Galaxies Showcase was kind of interesting. We'll see if they keep it going in the next couple of years. It does seem like it's something IGN are maybe trying to make happen. As there's a couple of Gamer Network things. So I'm not sure if it's meant to be European based or not. Maybe not. Like Konami was a publisher there, so probably not. And Krafton also. No, wait, Krafton is European. I don't know, possibly. I'll have to look into that one. Anyway, 50 games or so. I showed you some trailers from a few of them, but there are way more, obviously. And there's that Steam page as well to check out. What else was there? We saw a little bit more of Chronos, a New Dawn from Bloober Team, which seems like it's coming along pretty nicely. Agni, the Indonesian survival horror game. Again, it looks a bit jank at the moment, but there's still probably a good while left of development, so we're not too concerned about that just yet. Some release dates for some interesting games. Some new releases. Bionic Bay, as I said, if I can get past the character art, which I'm sure I can, because if I just sit really far away from the screen, I'm sure it'll be fine. Mandragora, I played the demo, just got absolutely annihilated, and I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of shit again. It does seem like a bit of fun. Like other people I have seen play it who have much more patience for dying all the time. Like I don't know. I'm not sure if am I still burned out on Elden Ring? I don't know. I guess we'll see. Because there have been a couple of other Souls-likes that I've seen that I have been interested to play, but then I thought again, like, am I ready for it? Am I ready for that kind of bullshit again? Anyway, Lush Foil Photography Sim. I haven't seen how it looks on console, so if the graphical fidelity is as incredible as it looks on that, but I would imagine still like a very high-end PC is still probably required to play it. The Lunar Remastered Collection, like, it's joining the ranks of other old JRPGs that I never got around to playing that I need to play. And it's another one. I don't know. Like, the pile is quite large at this point. I should actually play them probably pretty soon. Anyway, industry bullshit wise, like as I said, there's nothing a whole lot going on. Sony pushing the price of the PlayStation up again in places where they don't sell as many is kind of weird. It's not that they don't sell, like they do, obviously. They're the dominant console this generation or whatever, so they clearly sell a lot in Europe and Australia, New Zealand, and Middle East and what have you, but they definitely sell way more in the US. So not putting up the price there, but then using the excuse of inflation, it's like they're not immune to it. Like they're getting inflation too. Like anyway, we'll see how that works out for them. Union-wise with keywords, I don't really know where they're going to go with that because I don't see them getting broken up. And since they are at this point pretty dominant in the localization translation space, yeah, I don't know. Like there was a different outlet that also had a story with keywords with it's the same kind of thing, but it was also like, hey, we can use generative AI to replace you effectively. Or pay you less because you're not doing as much work because the generative AI is going to do most of the translating. You're just going to fix it up, so we don't need to pay you as much. It's like, that's not good. I don't like the sound of that. But if they're the only game in town, you can't really say anything about it, so... Anyway, that's it for this week. I'll be back next week at some stage. Yeah, right. I was gonna do it. I was gonna say about video. Shit! I brought it up. We're not talking about me not doing video game streams because it disappoints myself when I talk about it. Shit! I did it again anyway. All right, next week. Next week I won't talk about it unless I actually have something to talk about. All right. Goodbye. I'll talk to you next time.